There's a quiet shift happening in the background of the financial world. You won't see it on the evening news. It's not trending on social media. There aren't any dramatic headlines or viral charts. But if you listen closely, not to the noise, but to the movement of money, you'll notice something subtle. The smart money, the cautious capital, the wealth that values endurance over excitement, is starting to circle back to something old, something tangible, something that's been part of human history for thousands of years. And this time, it's not gold stealing the spotlight, it's silver. Now, I'm not talking about the silver you see in jewelry or coins your grandparents kept in a box. I'm talking about the metal that sits at the intersection of money and necessity, the one that moves quietly when paper wealth starts to feel heavy with risk. For decades, silver has lived in gold's shadow. But if you study history carefully, you'll see that every few decades, silver doesn't just follow gold, it catches up. Sometimes explosively. When the world rediscovers its value, the people who recognize that pattern before the crowd doesn't need luck later. They just need patience. And right now, patience is the most underrated financial strategy there is. See, we're living in a time where people confuse activity with progress. Everyone's chasing the next big thing, the next digital miracle, the next algorithm that promises easy money. But the quiet truth is that real wealth, enduring wealth, rarely comes from what's new. It comes from what has already proven it can survive what's next. And silver has survived everything: wars, depressions, inflation waves, currency changes, technology shifts. And in every one of those moments, silver's story wasn't about speculation, it was about rediscovery. If you look back, silver has always been the people's money. It was the metal of trade, of savings, of balance between the everyday citizen and the empire. Gold belonged to kings. Silver belonged to families. It's what built commerce long before Wall Street existed. And now, as the global economy grows more digital, more abstract, more detached from anything real, there's a quiet craving returning for something that doesn't need permission to hold value. That's where silver fits in. Now, let's talk about why 2026 matters. Not because it's some magical date circled on a calendar, but because the next couple of years represent a convergence of trends that all whisper the same thing. The window for positioning yourself before the crowd catches on is closing. You don't have to predict a collapse. You don't have to forecast a crash. You only need to recognize pressure building inside a system that's stretched thinner than it wants to admit. Government debt keeps climbing at record speed. Interest payments alone are approaching levels that used to fund entire wars. Inflation, despite what headlines suggest, hasn't disappeared. It's just changed shape. Essentials are still rising, and purchasing power continues to erode. Every year, the same dollar buys less. And when you're over 55 or 60, you don't need a chart to tell you that. You feel it every time you fill a cart or pay a bill. It's not about panic. It's about reality. And in times like that, silver starts to look less like a commodity and more like a life preserver. But what makes silver uniquely powerful isn't just its monetary history. It's its dual nature. Unlike gold, which sits largely as a store of value, silver is also an industrial powerhouse. It's essential in technology, in solar energy, in electric vehicles, in medicine, in defense systems, and in nearly every green initiative governments are pushing forward. You can't have a high-tech future without silver. And yet, we're consuming it faster than we're replacing it. Global silver inventories are declining. Mining supply hasn't kept up. The more technology advances, the tighter that squeeze becomes. That's what makes silver's position for the coming years so intriguing. It's not just a hedge, it's a bridge between the old world of money and the new world of industry, between security and innovation, between value and function. When you combine that scarcity dynamic with the emotional reality that trust in institutions is eroding, you get a powerful equation. It's not a matter of if people rediscover silver, it's when. And if history has taught us anything, it's that by the time the average investor starts noticing silver again, the easy positioning is already gone. Smart money doesn't chase. It accumulates quietly while everyone else is distracted. That's why I call it the quiet bet. Because the smartest investors I know aren't talking loudly about silver. They're simply making sure they have it before everyone else remembers why it matters. Now, I want to be very clear. This isn't investment advice. This isn't about predicting a specific number or a guaranteed timeline. This is about understanding behavior, both human behavior and market behavior. People act on emotion. Markets reflect emotion. And when fear of loss overtakes greed for gain, assets with real-world value tend to rise in relevance. Silver's beauty is that it doesn't require optimism or despair. It just exists, and that's exactly what makes it so powerful during times of change. Let's be honest for a moment. If you've worked for decades, if you've saved diligently, if you've built a life around stability and responsibility, you deserve more than a retirement plan that depends on whether the next political cycle goes smoothly. You deserve a foundation that doesn't vanish because a server goes down or a policy shifts. You deserve to sleep at night knowing your wealth isn't just numbers on a screen, but something real, something tangible, something history has already tested and proven. That's why more and more conservative Americans, especially those nearing or already in retirement, are taking a portion of their savings and anchoring it in physical assets like silver and gold. Not because they expect the world to end, but because they know cycles repeat. They've seen how fragile guarantees can become when systems get overextended, and they understand something the younger generation often forgets. There's no substitute for holding something that doesn't depend on someone else's promise. But owning silver the right way matters. It's not about jumping online and buying a few coins from an unknown seller. It's about understanding how to integrate metals into your broader financial structure intelligently, especially within retirement accounts like IRAs, where tax rules, storage, and compliance play critical roles. And that's exactly where Augusta Precious Metals comes in. I've mentioned them before because they've earned their reputation for one simple reason: they educate before they sell. Their approach isn't hype-driven, it's process-driven. They walk Americans step by step through how to diversify a portion of their savings into physical gold and silver, with complete transparency and full compliance. For people over 50 who value trust and clarity, that's rare. They're not chasing volume. They're helping people protect value. That's the difference. And that's what makes them one of the most respected names in the space. When you work with a firm like Augusta Precious Metals, you're not just buying metal, you're buying peace of mind. You're getting a partner who understands the emotional side of money, especially at this stage of life. Because once you cross 60, the game changes. It's not about swinging for the fences anymore. It's about protecting the field you already own. It's about making sure that after all these years, the value you built doesn't evaporate in someone else's experiment. Silver gives you that quiet strength. It's the metal of balance. Not as expensive as gold, not as volatile as tech, not as dependent as paper. It's accessible, practical, and historically resilient. It doesn't require trust. It simply requires recognition. And for those who can see what's coming, the shifting currents in currency policy, the growing strain of debt, the political polarization, the pressure of energy transitions, and the creeping erosion of purchasing power, silver represents something uniquely valuable: calm amidst complexity. Now, 2026 might sound far away, but it's closer than it feels. The decisions you make in the next 12 to 18 months will define how you experience whatever comes next. You can choose to hope things stay as they are, or you can position yourself so that even if they don't, you're not just surviving, you're steady. That's what the smart money does. It doesn't wait for confirmation. It reads the signs early. It doesn't chase headlines. It follows principles. And one of the oldest principles in wealth preservation is simple. When uncertainty rises, real value matters. I've seen this cycle before. Not identical, but familiar. I've seen what happens when people ignore the quiet indicators. I've seen what happens when retirees realize too late that their diversified portfolios weren't truly diversified. Because when everything inside the system is connected, you need something outside the system to balance it. That's what metals are for. And silver, in particular, is the overlooked opportunity hiding in plain sight. When the crowd finally turns its attention back to silver, they'll call it a rally. The smart money will just call it recognition. The difference is timing. And right now, timing still favors those who act before 2026 turns into another year of hindsight. So, if you're listening to this and something inside you nods in agreement, if you can feel that quiet truth that the world isn't as stable as it looks, don't ignore it. You've earned the right to protect what you built. You've earned the right to make choices that serve your peace of mind, not just your returns. Reach out to a company that knows how to make that process clear and simple. Learn what it would take to add physical silver or gold to your financial foundation. Augusta Precious Metals can help you do exactly that. They're not going to pressure you. They're going to educate you. They'll answer the questions you didn't even know to ask. And that's what separates good decisions from lasting ones. Because wealth isn't measured by how loud it grows. It's measured by how quietly it endures. And in a world that's changing faster than most people can process, silver stands as one of the last true bridges between the tangible and the intangible, the old and the new, the fragile and the enduring. The smart money understands this. It's not a secret. It's just quiet. The question is, will you wait until everyone else starts paying attention, or will you be part of the few who understood before 2026 why silver mattered again? If you found this video helpful, watch that video next. There you will learn even more about investing into precious metals to stay financially secure. I wish you a great day. Goodbye.